Hi everyone, it's Tammy with Shabby Fabrics. Look at this adorable project I'm going to work with you today on. This is a fast fusible patchwork bow. It looks so cute hanging on your front door. You could wire it to a basket. You could hang this in your home, wherever you're looking to add a touch of spring. Love spring. Spring, I think, is my favorite time of year. So I'm going to teach you how to do a fast fusible patchwork bow. We're going to use Fusible Grid today, and I know that we've used some Fusible Grid with various projects in the past, but I have a little bit different thing that we're going to do with this today, and I'm going to show you what we're going to do. So I'm going to start with a Quilt Smart grid. Quilt Smart does a grid, and this grid is 1.5 inch. 1.5 inch means I cut my squares to 1.5, right? Now, also in the past, we've cut our squares slightly smaller than the square. However, with Quilt Smart products, we don't need to do that. So I cut my squares to 1.5, and you can see, I can still see the dotted line all the way around this. So this grid is ever so slightly bigger than 1.5, all right? So that saves us time. Then we're not cutting some strange measurement that you forget about halfway through and you're on your ruler. So, all right, so the other thing we're gonna do with this grid is you're gonna need 2 panels of it. The reason you need 2 panels is you're gonna need to fuse the 2 together, because we need a longer strip. I need a strip that is 28 squares long to do my bow. We're going to do the bow as one piece, and then we're going to do the tie of the bow in another piece. So you need 2 pieces of grid. One of them is 5 by 28. The other one is 4 by 28. Now, the pattern that I'm referring to is a free download. Click on free download. You'll be able to print this right away at home, so you have this to follow along with or refer back to, or if you'd like to print that now and then make notes as we go through, that would be good too. All right, so this is a free download. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my big panel aside, and I'm going to show you how I fuse 2 pieces together. I'm going to set this over here. So what I have are 2 smaller pieces here. You can see I've already cut into this because I have scraps of grid everywhere. So if you need grid and you need just a piece of it, heck, if you have pieces, you need something bigger, let me show you how to do that. So I'm going to take parchment paper. Parchment paper is amazing. A little noisy there. Open that up. I'm just going to place this on my ironing surface because I'm going to work with this fusible grid, fusible side down. Because of course, if I touch this with an iron on the fusible side, it's going to immediately adhere to my iron. All right, so I've got my parchment paper down to protect my work surface. I have, this side is cut a 1/2 inch bigger. This side is a 1/2 inch bigger. I'm going to trim one of these sides right on the line so that it's right even. There we go. Okay. Now I'm just going to slide these together. Look at these amazing markings on here. I have X's, I have dashes, so I know exactly where this grid goes. That looks great to me. Let's kind of move the grid away from the iron here. Hold on. There we go. Okay. So now I can just kind of move this around until I get it right where I want it. I think that looks great. And now I'm just going to tap this with an iron. The very tip of my iron is all I'm using to touch. I'm not putting my full iron onto this grid. It's going to adhere immediately to itself. That's down. That's already down. That looks great. All right. I'm going to peel it off our parchment paper. And there we go. Now I have a piece longer to use for our bow. All right? Okay. So that's how you're piecing grid together. The next thing I want to show you, I'm going to set my parchment paper aside for a minute, is I want to talk to you about, well, what if you've never used Fusible Grid? How do I do that? Well, I'm going to go to my ironing board, and I have all my little 1.5-inch squares already pre-cut. We're using hydrangeas in the garden to do this. I love that collection. This is Our Collection by Riley Blake. And what we've done is we've just taken some scraps that we had and we just cut them into 1.5-inch squares. I just wanted color. All right, so I'm going to lay my grid. Now my grid is fusible side up because now I'm going to put my squares on here and I want them to fuse to this grid. So we're just going to start randomly laying your squares on. And this is how we do it on the ironing board. And we're just going to randomly throw some squares on here. I just try not to get two colors next to each other or two prints, the same prints next to each other. Kind of vary where you're putting stuff. It's a lot of fun to just design and just have fun with this. This is something, if you have older kids that might want to help you with this is a great project for kids, grandkids. My granddaughter would love this project. Okay, let's put some green in there. Just whatever you want to do, whatever you're looking for, use that. I try just to use all of the squares. Now you need to do this bow, because you have a 5x28 and a 4x28, you need 252 squares. A charm pack will work. Pre-cut, right? Love pre-cuts. So if you're got a charm pack that you want to use, looking for a project to do with that. Let's swap these. We have a pink down here. There we go. That charm squares work perfect for this project. You'll have plenty of squares left over. I recommend cutting more than 250 just because you're going to want a few extra just for design, just to play with. All right, so I think that looks good. All my squares are centered. I can see the dotted line all the way around. Move him over a little bit. I'm just going to adjust my little squares a little bit. There we go. All right, next step, parchment paper. You guessed it. Goes straight on top. I'm going to open this up so I just have one piece of parchment paper there. I can see through it. Everybody stayed where it's supposed to. And take my iron, and it is on hot. It's on high, no steam. If you use steam on parchment paper, the steam just comes right back in your face. It's not a good thing. Don't use steam when you're doing this. So now I'm just going to simply set my iron down. I'm just holding it there. Not very long. You saw how quickly that grid fused when I fused the two pieces together. It fuses fairly quickly to your fabrics. Just going to move it around a little here. All right. I think that looks good. Let's take a look. I'm going to peel this away. Oh yeah. That looks great. All right, we're going to set that aside. All right, fabrics are fused on there, no problem. Fantastic. All right, next step. I'm going to take a ruler, and now I'm going to trim this excess fusible grid away from my patchwork. I found that when you're sewing this patchwork together, if you have excess fusible grid like this, it just gets all wound up in the machine. It just causes more issues than it's worth. So I take that off just like that, okay? All right, next step, let's go to the machine and sew. I'm going to fold this right sides together, and you can see the dotted line, the brown dotted line right here. That's where I'm going to follow for my 1/4 inch on my sewing machine. All right, and I'm just going to stitch here to here. I'm going to open it up, I'm going to turn it again, and I'm going to stitch a second time. All right, let's go do that. I am sewing with a regular 1/4 inch foot. This is a BERNINA 790, so I have a 97D foot. The D is for the dual feed. I do engage that. I love that dual feed on this machine. There we go. All right, so you saw all I did was fold it over and stitch, right? I didn't pin it, I didn't fussy anything. I just folded it and stitched. This is what we have. All right, so now the next step is I'm going to take a very sharp pair of small scissors and I'm going to clip right here between all of these squares along the seam that I just sewed. Don't worry if you cut your stitches, that's okay. You're gonna sew it again, right? We're gonna come back and sew it the opposite direction. So you don't have to worry that you cut your stitches. It's not a problem. All right, let's take it to the ironing board. So now I cut those. I'm gonna show you how I press this. So now I'm gonna press this one this direction, and I'm going to press the next one the opposite direction because I want these seams to nest. Because my next thing is I'm going to fold these like this and sew again, but I need to do something with these seam allowances. That's why you clip them. All right? So I'm going to lay this flat, and I'm holding this taut with my fingers because now I'm going to come on with my iron from the back. There we go. As that just kind of sits there. Okay, the seams are going up. Now let's make these seams go down. Move along. These seams go up. I'm just using the tip of my iron just to get those seams started in that direction. Then lay your iron on top. They behave themselves, and if they don't, go back and make it behave. Be the boss of your fabric. Here we go. Like that. All right, now we're going to go forward again. 1, 2. Let's see what it looks like. Ah, perfect. Nope. This one's supposed to be down. He kind of got crazy there. Let's fix that. There we go. All right, now I want you to notice I did that from the back. I did not do that from the front. Why didn't I do that from the front? Because you still have fusible between all of these squares. If you press this from the front, you're going to get fusible on your iron. Nobody likes that. That's why I always do it with this face down. All right? Okay, now my seams are pressed opposite. I'm going to turn this, or I'm going to fold this just like this, right sides together. You can see immediately how these seams are now nesting. There's my dotted line, perfectly where I need it. I'm just going to go sew. Yeah, I'm not going to use any pins whatsoever. Let's go do that. I'm going to fold it again, just like that. And I'm just going to sew. Still no pins. All right, here we are back. Another little thread there. Let me get that off. All right, look at that. Perfect patchwork, no pins. I can't believe that. That just makes me so happy. Again, I'm going to press this from the back, and now I'm just going to press all my seams one direction, just like that. Perfect. And you are ready to sew whatever project you're making with patchwork. You're ready to go. All right, so let's take a look at what this looks like. Let me gather some of this out of the way here. All right, this is what your patchwork looks like to make your bow. This is the top of the bow, the part that goes around, okay? Now the reason I did it so long is so that the bow is actually, we're gonna sew it like this, and then I'm gonna gather it like this. So that's roughly what I'm doing with the bow, all right? I'm gonna show you how to construct that. This is the bow. Let's work on that first, all right? So I have 5 by 28 sewn. I pressed all my seams one direction, all right? I'm gonna fold this directly in half, just like this. And I want you to see all these seams are now nesting. Beautiful. Now this is getting thick. So I am going to put a few pins in this just to hang on to this because I don't want this to get off. So because this is a heavier product, right? Because now I've got 2 layers of the Fusible grid. I've got 2 layers of fabric. I'm not going to use my little extra fine patchwork pins here. I'm using the Gypsy Quilter Cool Pins. I like them because they're longer and they're much sturdier than my patchwork pins. My patchwork pins would all be bent by now if I were using them here. So I'm just lining up my seam allowances and just pinning this just like this. And the last one. All right, I'm going to turn it over. I'm going to pin this side, and then we'll go to the machine and stitch that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on this line right here. This line is about halfway, both of these lines. I'm going to start here. I'm going to stitch toward the corner. So I'm going to start and back stitch, come to the corner, 1/4 inch, and then stitch all along, all right? Because I don't want to, I need to have an opening to turn this, okay? All right, so I'm going to remove my pins. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut this corner, and I'm going to trim this corner right on the end, being very careful not to cut my stitching, all right? Okay, now let's go ahead and cut these corners too. And it's just going to give us a little bit less bulk in those corners. All right, let's turn it right side out. Let's see how cute this is. You know, I just love doing patchwork with Fusible Grid. It's so fast and it's accurate. That's what I love. So I love the look of patchwork. That's perfect. And I didn't use any pins on it. That's what's amazing. When you make that grid, you don't have to use pins. All right, I'm just going to use a clover point-to-point turner. And I am now poking out my corners, being careful not to poke that all the way through. That looks good. Let's poke this corner out. There we go. And this corner. Perfect. I love that. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give our bow a little bit of fluff. So I'm just going to use a very small amount of polyfill. This is probably way more than I need. So I'm just going to put some polyfill in here because I just want to give it some body, right? I don't want it to be flat. I just want to give it a little bit of body. So I'm just going to kind of work this polyfill down into it. I have to put my whole arm in here. I know I am. There we go. That's why you leave a good opening that your hand will fit into. That's why I left a good 4-inch opening. I know I could get my hand in there. All right, so I'm just kind of giving it a little bit of fluff. I'll go ahead and use the rest of this. I think it's going to be just right. Yep, that looks great. Kind of smooth it out. All right, now, how do we finish this end? Well, I need to turn it in. So what I'm going to do, I started to sew. See, we sewed on the corners there. So now I'm just going to turn this. I'm going to take my iron and just press this down. I'm just going to press that 1/4 inch into it. I can see that 1/4 inch. It wants to go there. I'm going to help it with the iron. Just like that. Turn it over. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. There we go. All right, as soon as I get that together, I'm just going to fold these edges together like this. You can use a Wonder Clip is a great idea because now it's pretty thick, right? So trying to put a pin through here might be difficult. We'll just use a Wonder Clip. Wonder Clips are great. I don't know what I do without them, but every time I turn around, I'm inventing a new use for a Wonder Clip. I'll bet you all have a lot of uses for Wonder Clips. They're all over my house. All right, there we go. All right, so now I'm ready to top stitch this. So I'm just going to take this to the machine. I'm going to stitch this closed, and I'm just going to stitch all the way around this using a light pink thread. Okay, I'll see you there. All right, so now I'm going to top stitch this with about 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, and I know that 1/8 of an inch on this machine is right here to the edge of my throat plate. I know this first mark is 1/4 of an inch. This is 1/8 of an inch, and so that's where I'm going to use as a guide to follow along. I'm just going to set my project right on that edge and just follow along, and that should work. All right, so I'm going to set this in here, and I'm going to use this edge as my guide. Let's get my thread arranged. There we go. All right, we'll start about right here. There we go. I'm just top stitching I'm going to get about 1/8 of an inch from the edge, turn it, and I'm just going to go right on down the whole thing. All right, I'm back. Look how cute this is. I love it. It looks like a big pillow, doesn't it? All right, so eventually what's going to happen is I just kind of accordion folded the center of my bow like this. Oop, I have a thread right there. I need to grab this thread. There it goes. Okay. All right. Just going to kind of accordion fold that. You can hang on to that with a couple of window clips if you like. There we go. That works. That works great. So I kind of took the polyfill and I worked that center so that the polyfill wasn't in the very center of this. There we go. All right, so here's my bow. So I wanted to give this bow a little bit of dimension. So I took the corners like this. So I'm pulling these two edges away from each other. Okay, and now I am simply going to tuck. I'm going to take a tuck right there. I only want about half a square on each. There we go. Just like that. You see the tuck we take? Now we have some dimension to that bow. Let me take a little bit less. You can take as much as you like or as little as you like. This way to this way. When you get it where you like it. I think that looks good. I'm just going to sew with a needle and thread. So I have a loop here. I'm just going to grab a hold of that loop, just like that, so that it starts that thread. I'm just stitching, not very many stitches. I'm just taking a few stitches here. All right. And I'm just going to bury this a little bit into the back. And I'm going to tie this off. I just want to hang on to that a little bit, just to give it a little dimension. There we go. Hit that a couple of times, and we're good. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and stitch the other side, and when I get back, we will move on to the tail. All right, so the bow is complete. I'm going to set that aside. Now I need to do the tail. So the tail, we are backing with a really pretty pink fabric. I'll show you the pink right here. Isn't that pretty? I love this fabric. It's got the shiny, love the pearlescence on that. Okay, so you can see how I've got my bow, my tail. I had to put the ends on here. I wanted my ends of my bow to be pointy. I didn't want them to be flat. All right, so here's how we did that. I counted 5 squares back, and I took a friction pen, and you can see my line, and I just laid a ruler on here, halfway, drew a friction line, okay? This is a sewing line, not a cutting line. This is a sewing line. I did exactly the same thing on this side, made sure it's going the same direction, okay? And then I started right here in the center. Now I needed to leave about a 5-inch opening here. So again, I started halfway on one. I made friction marks there. I do that to help remind myself. Start here, stop here. Because if I don't, I have a tendency just to keep on sewing. So I made a mark, so I knew start here. I did a back stitch and sew to here, to my line, down my line, and then a 1/4 inch all the way across the bottom, back up, and to my next friction line, and then I back stitched again. And you can see that clearly on the back, all right? So my fabric's right sides together with my tail patchwork, all right? So let's take our pins out, and I'm going to trim this, and we're going to turn this right side out and go top stitch it exactly like we did the bow. Now I didn't put any polyfill into this. I wanted those tails to hang more naturally. I didn't think they needed to be fluffy. Okay, so let's take this. Now I'm going to use the 1/4 inch mark on my Creative Grids ruler. This is a Creative Grids 2.5 by 12.5, and I'm just laying that 1/4 inch right along that friction line. I'm going to take a rotary cutter and trim that straight off, just like that. Let's do the other side. Okay, 1/4 inch. Make sure you're cutting the right side off, and I am because the side is unsewn. Whoop. Take it right off of there. Whoop. There we go. All right. So now I'm going to take my point, and I'm definitely going to cut this corner off. I can see where my stitches are, so I'm just going to cut it straight off. Let's do the other side, just like that. All right, let's turn this through our opening right here. This is why I backstitch that opening when I do that, because if I don't, I know that I'm just going to rip this thread right back. It'll come straight out. So I normally backstitch an opening when I do that. Oh, this is going to be cute. All right, I'm going to take again my clover point-to-point turner. I'm going to work this all the way in. I'm going to poke out that bottom corner. This is why we go ahead and take, oh, look how cute that is. That is perfect. That's as much of a point I want on that bow. Does not have to have a really sharp point on it. See the other side. I don't know what I'd do without this point-to-point turner. This is really an incredible tool. Work that point out of there. There we go. There it is, just like that. I'm going to go ahead and make sure this point is out, just like that. How cute. All right, let's take this to the ironing mat and let's give this a really good press. I'm going to press it from this side. I'm just going to roll this like this and make sure you can see how this is now a nice sharp crease right here. We're just going to set the iron on here and just work it along just like this. Beautiful. Okay, go back to my point. You can give that a little bit of steam if you want to. Steam's not going to hurt anything at this point. Make sure this is all pressed nice and flat. All right, so now when I get to this opening here, I'm just going to open this up and I can see my 1/4 inch is right here. I'm just going to fold this down 1/4 inch and press that with the tip of my iron. Hold that seam allowance at 1/4 inch. Right along. Perfect. This one is just going to fold in and it's going to just behave itself. We hope. Yep, I'm just going to give it a press too, just to show it who's boss. Sometimes seam allowance tries to do its own thing. I want it to behave itself. All right, I got it. I'm going to put this together. And again, I'm just going to clip this. Put a little clip in it here. There we go. Make sure it's nice and straight. One more. All right, perfect. So now I'm going to go to the machine and I'm going to top stitch all the way around it. We are almost done. Okay, so again, I'm going to take 1/8 inch seam allowance and I'm just going to run this right here along the edge of my throat plate. All right, and there is our tie. That is done. No, I'm sorry, that's the tails. The tails are done. All right, now let's look at how to do the knot in the center. Okay, so I chose the same fabric that we had used for our backing on our tails. So I have a 4.5 by 12 inch rectangle here. I'm going to take this and put it wrong sides together and put a nice crease in that. I'm going to open it up and now I'm going to fold my raw edge in. Now I'm not going to finish these ends. You're never going to see them. There's no reason to worry about finishing that end. So I'm going to line my raw edge up with the fold, the crease that I just put in there, crease it again. Just like this, turn it over, do the same thing one more time, fold this to the center, just like this. Beautiful. There we go. All right, now I'm simply going to put the two together and press one more time. Okay, take this to the machine. You're going to top stitch this side, and actually I'd stitch the two sides that are the two folds. Stitch that first. Okay, and then it looks like this. All right, pretty pink thread on there. I love that. Okay, let's put our bow together. So I'm going to take the center of my tail and I'm going to accordion fold it like this. I'm going to unclip my bow and I'm going to accordion fold the bow. He's kind of already there. And I'm going to take my tie, fold it under here a little bit. All right, now I'm going to turn this way so you can see. I think the camera can get this. So now all I'm doing is folding this edge over, just like this. I'm going to take this long edge, and now I'm coming up, around, and I'm just going to wrap it. And I'm going to go a couple of times around this bow, ending on the back. Now, if you've done this tight, and you have a weird little tail sticking out, no problem. That's why we have a rotary cutter. I'm just going to cut that off. Okay, extra piece. Now my bow is ending right on the back, just like that. Okay, I'm going to put a couple of clips there to hang on to that. But I'm going to tell you how I did this. I used hot glue. Look how cute this is. And there's our bow, just like that. So to finish this, you're going to open these clips up and put some hot glue in there and just hot glue that. And now you're ready to hot glue it or wire it to your wreath. This one, we did wire this to the wreath. We did not hot glue it on there. I wired that in. We were thinking maybe we wanted to use this bow again, and we might put it on a basket. We might put it as a display. We might put it somewhere other than just on a wreath. Now I wanted to also touch base on how to do the eggs. I'm not going to actually show you all of the steps to that. I'm just going to talk to you about it. We started with a little white plastic egg, just like this, and we took scraps of fabric, and you can see we just Mod Podge this. It's just Mod Podge. You're just decoupaging this on here. And so we're just using small scraps of fabric. This is the hydrangea, the large hydrangea fabric. So it looks a little odd because you've got the green in that. But then this one is the pink polka dot one. And you can just see all the little pieces of fabric that we used just to put in there. And then we just took hot glue and hot glued these into the wreath, just various places. All right? So thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate your time. I'm so happy you joined me today and saw how to make a beautiful, fast, fusible patchwork bow that will look beautiful in your home, decorating your door, or whatever you choose to do with it. Please post some pictures. We'd love to see your patchwork bows. And I'll see you next time for a Shabby Fabrics tutorial.